Do you ever find yourself standing outside a party, hand on the doorknob, taking a deep breath because walking inside feels like stepping onto a battlefield?
Oh, every single Friday night of my life, Lisa.
I'm so glad it's not just me. Welcome back to English Shower. I'm Lisa.
And I'm Liam. Before we dive into the deep end of our minds today, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and give this video a thumbs up if you've ever felt that social butterflies are actually more like social hornets.
Seriously, people think I'm this high-energy people person because I work in marketing, but honestly, last month I went to a tech mixer in NYC. I walked in, saw the crowd, and immediately turned around and hid in a bathroom stall for 15 minutes just to scroll on my phone. I felt like such a failure.
I can top that. I once saw a former colleague on the street in London. Instead of saying a simple hello, I panicked, pretended to receive an urgent phone call, and walked into a florist. I ended up buying a 20-pound bouquet of lilies for absolutely no one, just to avoid a 30-second conversation.
20 pounds for silence? That's a steep price, Liam. But that's what we're talking about today, social anxiety. It's not just being shy. It's that deep-rooted fear of being judged.
Indeed. And it's fascinating how our cultures handle this fear. In the UK and the US, the why behind the anxiety feels quite different.
In the States, I feel like there's this massive pressure to have main character energy. If you're at a social event and you're not on, you feel invisible. And in America, being invisible is like failing at life.
That sounds exhausting. In Britain, it's almost the opposite. We have this cultural obsession with not making a scene. The goal is often to blend in, to be part of the wallpaper. Our social anxiety usually stems from the fear of being too loud or too American, if you'll forgive the expression.
I get it. So for me, the anxiety is, am I interesting enough? For you, it's, am I being too much?
Precisely. We call it tall poppy syndrome sometimes, the idea that the poppy that grows too high gets its head cut off. So we're constantly apologizing just for existing. I'll apologize to a literal mannequin if I bump into it in a shop. Oh, sorry. It's a way to deflect attention.
That's so different. In New York, if I don't sell myself in the first 10 seconds of a conversation, I feel like I've lost an opportunity. We call it the elevator pitch mentality. It makes every casual coffee feel like a job interview. My social battery drains so fast because I'm constantly trying to perform.
You mentioned your social battery. That's a great way to put it. In the UK, we use politeness as a shield to protect that battery. We use small talk about the weather not because we care about the rain, but because it's a safe, neutral zone.
We do small talk too, but it's more aggressive. Like, hey, how are you? What are you working on? It's very doing focused. I realize that when I'm anxious, I start over-talking. I fill every silence with words because I'm terrified that a pause means the other person is judging me.
See, in a British pub, silence is actually quite common, but the anxiety there is about the unspoken rules. There's a complex social hierarchy and a lot of sarcasm. If you don't get the joke, you feel like an outsider.
Oh, the sarcasm would kill me. I take it personally. In the US, we tend to be more earnest. We say what we mean, mostly. But that creates a different anxiety. Did I say too much? Was I too honest? We're always worried about our personal brand.
Personal brand. Even the phrase makes me want to hide under a duvet. But I suppose that's the digital marketing side of you talking.
It's not just me, though. The US system is built on networking. Your net worth is your net worth, right? So if social anxiety keeps you home, you're not just missing a party, you're potentially missing your next career move. The stakes feel incredibly high. It turns a fear of people into a fear of poverty.
That's a very sharp insight, Lisa. In the UK, we have more of a class anxiety. It's less about your network and more about, do I belong in this room? Your accent, your choice of words, even how you hold a teacup can feel like a test. It's a very old-fashioned kind of pressure that lingers in the background.
So it's performance versus provenance. I'm worried about how I'm performing right now. You're worried about where you come from and if you fit the mold.
Spot on. And when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, another phrase you Americans love, you're essentially fighting centuries of social conditioning to stay in your lane.
It's hard to just be yourself when yourself feels like a work in progress. I think that's why so many of us feel like frauds. Imposter syndrome and social anxiety are like best friends.
They really are. We spend so much time keeping up appearances, as we say in England, that we forget everyone else is just as terrified as we are.
Let's talk about our phones for a second. In New York, my social anxiety is heavily tied to my digital presence. I feel this constant pressure to post my best life because if I'm invisible online, I'm invisible to my clients.
That sounds like a unique kind of modern exhaustion, Lisa. In London, we have a different fear, the fear of being cringe. If you try too hard to look perfect or successful online, people judge you for being insincere or too American.
Too American being synonymous with trying too hard? I get it. For me, the anxiety is about performance. I have to curate every sunset and every latte. If it's not on brand, I feel like I'm failing at my own life.
We prefer the digital fortress approach. We use private accounts or post very dry, self-deprecating jokes. It's a preemptive strike. If I make fun of myself first, then no one else can judge me. But that irony is its own kind of cage.
It's a catch-22, isn't it? I'm anxious because I'm performing, and you're anxious because you're hiding. Both of us are terrified of what people actually think of the unfiltered version of us.
Precisely. In the UK, we value privacy like a religion. So when we are finally forced into a real room without our screens, we've forgotten how to just exist. We've lost the muscle memory for genuine, messy connection.
This leads into where we actually hang out. In the US, our third spaces, like coffee shops or networking events, are so transactional. You're always looking for a lead or a connection. It makes every conversation feel like a mini job interview.
But where the British pub is so different, but also more complex. It's supposed to be a place to relax, but the unspoken rules are a minefield. For example, the round system. If you don't buy your turn of drinks, you're socially dead.
Wait, so you're constantly calculating whose turn it is? That would stress me out way more than a networking event. I'd be so worried about social debt that I couldn't enjoy my drink.
We are. We spend the whole night thinking, did I say thank you enough? Am I hogging the conversation? Is the barman judging my choice of ale? It's a fear of breaching a tradition that has existed for centuries.
In the States, we don't have that deep tradition, so we fill the void with productivity. The anxiety is this conversation a waste of time? If I'm not getting something out of the interaction, I feel a sense of guilt.
It's breach of etiquette versus loss of productivity. I'm worried about being a bad citizen of the pub. You're worried about being a bad CEO of your own life. Both are incredibly heavy weights to carry to a bar.
Let's talk about the why behind small talk. Americans are famous for being fake friendly, right? Hey, how are you? You look great. But for us, that's a way to lower the tension. We use high energy to mask our awkwardness.
Whereas we use the weather to hide our souls. We talk about the rain not because we care about meteorology, but because it's a neutral zone. It's a shield. As long as we're talking about the clouds, you can't see my anxiety.
That's so interesting. Our small talk is aggressive. It's about doing and achieving. What are you working on? Where did you go to school? We use questions like a probe to find a common ground for success.
And we use silence like a buffer. In a British conversation, a pause isn't always a bad thing. But for an American, I've noticed a 3-second silence feels like a social emergency that needs to be fixed immediately.
It really does. I start over-talking when I'm anxious. I'll fill the gap with useless information just to keep the vibe alive. Then I go home and cringe at everything I said. Why did I tell my dentist about my childhood dog?
I do the opposite. I hedge everything. I'll say, I was just wondering if it's not too much trouble and only if you're not busy. By the time I ask the question, the other person has aged 10 years. It's exhausting being this polite.
Speaking of politeness, let's dive into sorry. I know it's a cliche that Brits say sorry for everything, but how does that relate to anxiety? Is it a genuine apology or just a social reflex?
It's a psychological shield, Lisa. If I say sorry when you step on my foot, I'm saying please don't be angry with me for having a foot in your way. It's a pathological fear of confrontation or making a scene.
That's wild. In NYC, if someone steps on my foot, I might not yell, but I definitely won't apologize. We're taught to stand our ground, but that creates a high-friction environment where everyone is constantly on guard.
Exactly. Your anxiety comes from, will I be taken advantage of? Mine comes from, will I cause a disturbance?
I will eat a terrible cold meal in a restaurant and tell the waiter it's lovely just to avoid a 30-second uncomfortable talk.
I could never do that. If I pay for it, I want it right. But then I feel anxious that the waiter thinks I'm a Karen. We have this new anxiety in the US about being perceived as entitled, even when we're just asking for what we paid for.
So we're both trapped. I'm trapped by my duty to be invisible and polite, and you're trapped by your right to be heard and satisfied. It's no wonder we're all so stressed out by a simple dinner.
I think at the root of it, American social anxiety is about value. If I'm not the most interesting person in the room, do I even deserve to be there? We're raised to believe we can be anything, which is a lot of pressure.
That's the American dream turned into a social nightmare. In the UK, the anxiety is more about belonging. It's the do I fit the mold question. It's about your accent, your school, and your understanding of the social ladder.
You mean class anxiety? Is that still a major factor in the 21st century? Because in the States, we pretend class doesn't exist, even though it totally does. We just call it wealth or hustle.
It's very much alive here. It's like an invisible map. If you use the wrong word for a sofa or napkins, people notice. So you're always performing a version of yourself that you think belongs in that specific room.
That's just imposter syndrome with a fancy accent. I feel that too, but mine is more about my resume. Am I successful enough to talk to these people? We're both just actors trying to remember our lines.
We are. And we're both so focused on our own lines that we forget the other person is also terrified. We're all just staring at each other, hoping no one notices how fast our hearts are beating.
Do you think school made your anxiety worse, Liam? In the US, we're forced to give presentations from age 6. We have to sell our ideas before we even have them.
It was the opposite for me. In the UK, if you're too enthusiastic in class, you're called a boff or a teacher's pet. We're taught to hide our intelligence just to fit in.
That's so sad. For me, the anxiety was about not being the star. If you weren't the leader of the group project, you felt like you were failing at your future career.
And for me, the anxiety was about standing out too much. We value the team player who doesn't make a fuss, but that means you never learn how to truly express your own voice.
So I'm anxious because I'm not special enough, and you're anxious because you're afraid of being too special. We really are polar opposites.
Indeed. Our education systems are factories for different kinds of social fear. You're trained to be a CEO, and I'm trained to be a quiet civil servant. Both paths are terrifying.
Do you think school made your anxiety worse, Liam? In the US, we're forced to give presentations from age 6. We have to sell our ideas before we even have them.
It was the opposite for me. In the UK, if you're too enthusiastic in class, you're called a buff or a teacher's pet. We're taught to hide our intelligence just to fit in. That's so sad.
For me, the anxiety was about not being the star. If you weren't the leader of the group project, you felt like you were failing at your future career.
And for me, the anxiety was about standing out too much. We value the team player who doesn't make a fuss, but that means you never learn how to truly express your own voice.
So I'm anxious because I'm not special enough, and you're anxious because you're afraid of being too special. We really are polar opposites.
Indeed. Our education systems are factories for different kinds of social fear. You're trained to be a CEO, and I'm trained to be a quiet civil servant. Both paths are terrifying.
This ties into how we view people. In America, every new person is a potential opportunity. We call it social capital. It sounds cold, but we see socializing as an investment in our future.
That phrase, social capital, makes me want to hide under my duvet. In the UK, we view socializing more as maintaining the fabric. It's about slow trust and long history.
But that slow process is its own kind of stress. If I need to wait 10 years to be your real friend, I'll be anxious that I'm doing something wrong every single day in between.
I suppose so, but the American speed of friendship feels like a bubble to me. It's high energy, but is it real? My anxiety comes from wondering if the connection is just a transaction.
It's a trade-off. I get a wide network, but feel lonely in a crowd. You get a deep network, but feel trapped by the walls of your own social circle.
Exactly. We're both trying to buy social insurance. You do it by meeting everyone, and I do it by being extremely careful about who I meet.
We have to talk about FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's huge in the States. If there's a party and I'm not there, I feel like the world is moving on without me.
We have a different one, the fear of being too keen. Keen means being too eager or desperate. If I reply to a text too fast, I'm worried I look like I have no life.
That's hilarious. I'm anxious if I don't reply fast. I want to show I'm on it and productive. If I wait, I'm scared the other person will lose interest or think I'm rude.
See, that's American speed again. In Britain, cool is being slightly detached. If you show too much emotion or excitement, you've lost the social game. It's a very quiet, stressful game.
It sounds like you're all playing poker and we're all playing a high-speed video game. No wonder we both end up with social burnout.
We do. We both use different masks to survive. You wear the success mask and I wear the irony mask. But underneath, we're both just holding our breath.
I think things are changing, though. Gen Z in the US is talking more about boundaries. They're realizing that hustle culture is just a recipe for a panic attack.
I agree. Even in the UK, the stiff upper lip is starting to tremble a bit. People are realizing that being polite shouldn't mean being miserable.
I've started being honest at parties. Instead of saying, I'm great, I'll say, actually, I'm a bit overwhelmed. Usually, the other person says, oh, thank God, me too.
That's the vulnerability revolution. It's the only way to kill social anxiety, by shining a light on it. Once you admit you're nervous, the power of the fear disappears.
It's about progress over perfection. We don't have to be the perfect host or the perfect guest. We just have to be human.
Well said, Lisa. It's a long journey, but maybe the first step is just putting the phone down and taking a real breath, without a caption.
Okay, let's look at some phrases we use today that can help you navigate these social waters.
Great idea. We'll do a quick repeat after me first. Just listen to the sound and copy us.
My social battery is drained.
My social battery is drained.
Stop beating around the bush.
Stop beating around the bush.
I'm just keeping up appearances.
I'm just keeping up appearances.
Fake it till you make it.
Fake it till you make it.
Progress over perfection.
Progress over perfection. Now, a quick situation quiz. Imagine you are at a party and you feel very tired of talking to people. You want to tell your friend that your energy for socializing is at 0. What would you say? That's right. You'd say, my social battery is drained. Perfect. One more. Imagine someone is taking a long time to get to the point because they are being too polite. You want them to be direct. What do you say? Exactly. Stop beating around the bush.
We covered a lot of ground today, from social batteries to digital fortresses. If you're feeling anxious right now, just remember, even professionals like us hide in bathroom stalls sometimes.
It's true. Don't let the fear of being imperfect stop you from connecting with others. The goal isn't to be the loudest person in the room. It's just to be present.
Exactly. Focus on progress over perfection. Every small hello is a victory.
If you enjoyed our deep dive today, please hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode.
And we love hearing from you. Please leave a comment below with your requests for future themes or tell us your own socially awkward stories.
We read every single one. Until next time, take a deep breath and be kind to yourself.
See you next time.
See you next time.